the Cairo Population Conference. We've talked about the World Summit for Children, which was in 1990, and then also the World Ecological Summit in 1992 in Rio de Janeiro. And as I had mentioned, that those summits were not highly combative. And one of the reasons that they were not highly combative was that it was still under the Bush, senior Bush administration. And so President Bush Sr. came, for instance, to the Rio Summit. And then things started to go south in the sense that various elements in the UNICEF Executive Board were trying to change the focus, the unique focus on children that UNICEF had, and were trying to enlarge it or refocus it, particularly on women, and not necessarily just on the girl child, which would have been highly understandable, but they were trying to introduce elements of regarding abortion, and there were hints of all of this. And what was transformative in all of this process was, from a historical perspective, is that someone somehow got into the hands of Pope John Paul II the draft document for the Cairo Population Conference. And it was a draft document which was written by the UNFPA Secretariat, the United Nations Fund for Population Activities, which is highly selective and very much focused on quote-unquote reproductive health, and reproductive health then being a code word in their ideology and framework for abortion. So the Holy Father, having read this document, decided that he would confront it head on. And so he gave an audience to Dr. Nafis Siddique, who was the Pakistani head of the UNFPA, and she was also the one who was the brainchild for the Cairo Population Conference. She was shocked at how clearly he had understood what was afoot. But even then, she didn't understand how strongly he objected, because it's one thing to say these things, but another thing to do what he did. And what he did was he immediately sent a letter to every head of state in the world or head of government, and those letters were highly important in terms of making world leaders understand what was at stake. And John Paul stated that he deemed that a document which dealt so intimately with the human family deserved his personal attention and the personal attention of all heads of state. And so the point that he was making is that you cannot have a document that concerns the human condition so centrally and have no reference to anything religious, no reference to family, no reference to life itself, and to have no ethical framework for it. And he thought that the document was very dangerous, and that was what then he began to decry to the world. And so basically what transpired is that the Holy Father effectively pulled out all stops. He did not fail to use any possible clout that he felt he had, either diplomatically or in terms of him being a sovereign, and his being therefore the head of the Holy See, which had ambassadors throughout the world. And he did so at all the levels possible within those diplomatic levels. And so he started with the highest, and he learned, I think, also from Jim Grant, in the sense that if they want to deal with summits of world leaders, he was going to deal with world leaders. And so he wrote, as I had mentioned, to every head of state, and then he began a series of Sunday angeluses on the topic that was related to population. And he did so from a religious and ethical perspective. And he said that that in his letters to the heads of state, he said he was appealing to them who, quote unquote, who are concerned for the good of their own people and of all humanity, not to weaken man, his sense of the sacredness of life, his capacity for love and self-sacrifice. In his words, the issues touched upon in the draft document that was produced by UNFPA for the Cairo Population Conference, quote, are sensitive issues upon which our societies stand or fall, unquote.